Ariane Simon on the subject of communication. We are today the 25th of the month of January of 2009, and the title of this document is on the subject of communication. Alors Ariane and Simon, I just made that same recording in French just before, and now I'm going to do it in English to make sure that I can express it, you can understand it as best as possible. English being a language, a communication language, which you are more used to than the French language, because the French language is your second language, and while English is your first language. The same as for me, English is my second language, while French is the first language. And what I'm going to say here is going to be slightly different from what I said in French, because the flow of idea is different. The flow of idea I had 5 minutes ago in the first recording is not exactly the same as the one I'm going to have now, speaking English. But the idea that came to my mind is I hear some birds croaking next to me, and the idea is this: we are birds on a wire, like in the song of Leonard Cohen, Birds on a Wire. We are birds on a wire who express our emotion, our sensation, our feelings through speech. And language is only a bird song. And through that bird song, I am expressing how I feel. And I want to express how I feel regarding the conversation we had last night when I left you. We were talking about the various ways we communicate. And you were telling me that in a free communication, one is speaking, and when somebody else, the person who is listening to that person wants to say something, she just talk. She just interrupt the other person and just put two bobs in. And I was saying, no, what we do is we stop and we listen. Now, what I expressed on the first recording is that both methods are okay. And you are right when you say we just chirp like birds. I mean, one is chirping, the other one is chirping, and everybody is chirping together. And we see finches do that. They go toop, 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 and the other one next to him is going at the same time. Toop, 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 and they're happy to be. So that's one way to communicate. We can just chirp and chirp when we want to and when we wish to. But in my opinion, and that's my opinion only, this chirping is disturbing for the flow of idea. So I feel, and that's only my opinion, that it's better to let the first bird chirp all he has to chirp, and then when he has finished, I chirped in return. So that was my feeling for me. I preferred that way of communication than just the constant chirping. But both methods are okay, and that's what I expressed in French very clearly. I believe. Now, obviously, whatever I'm going to express is my belief system. Like the organized religion. That's what we do in organized religion. We express a belief system. That's why it's organized. It's organized dans la tête. It's organized in the decade. I call it in French la tête de conte. La tête de conte, c'est une tête remplie de contes. Ça veut dire aussi la tête de con. Et ça veut dire aussi en anglais de decade. Alors les images mentales ne sont pas les mêmes. The mental pictures between one language and the other are not the same. And that's why poetry cannot be exactly translated from one to the other. And that's why the translation of the Bible from Aramean to Greek and from Greek to English or French and other languages is questionable. So I was saying that in the method we use to communicate, you are advocating for the chirping, the incessant chirping at will of the two birds communicating, and I say it's better to let one word finish its chirping and then I can chirp in turn. And I used the example of the communications we have in sales, and in sales when somebody doesn't want to follow you and your advice, they usually remain silent. To break that, we got to use a tie down. such as "Don't you think so? Isn't it?" Would it be fair to say all those are tied down, Ariane? They have nothing to do with them buying something or not. It has to do with me, the salesperson, making sure my client understands what I am talking about. That's all. So that was my first point. The second point was the fact that even though I understand all of this, when you, Ariane, or Simone, you express something which is contradictory or felt that way to me, I panic in my mind of Lost Boy Calling. Lost Boy Calling is this song of Roger Waters, taken by also Georgina Filipaldi, I think, you can Filipino or something like this. And what this song says basically is that we have buried in our psyche a lot of emotions that belong to our past, basically, but our past as a young boy or young girl, and our past, the past of the people we lived with. And that brings me to my point with you, Ariane and Sydney. You are two magnificent gorilla female, as I said in that speech called "How to Create Shit in a Box That Does Not Stick," and that's the mental picture that I have in my mind. And as such, I was surrounded by a magnificent gorilla female when I was a baby, when I was 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old, 1 year old, and that was my mother. And my mother had enormous tantrums, and that affected my head, that affected my decade, that affected my tête de compte. And every time my mother had a tantrum, the little baby thought he was going to die. And so every time she expressed something that was derogatory or against his behavior, or that was negative to him, he felt he was going to die, because she did express it with a lot of gusto, dedication and energy that were of a negative nature, because she was hurt inside. And how do I know that? Well, I know that because she expressed to me in her letter in 2003 that she went to see her parents when she was 25 years old, and she gave it to them, and they remained silent. Now, when my mother was 25, I was 6 years old, because I am born when she was 18. So there is no doubt that for these first formative years of my life, until the age of 6 at least, assuming that at 6 she emptied a suitcase and was finally freed from all these negative emotions, which she was not, because that's what we worked on 5 years ago, and that's what she's freeing herself of now. She understands now, it's getting better. But my point is, me, Jean-Paul Gallon, as a little frog croaking in the pond, I was surrounded by this mother, and this mother was a magnificent female energy, like you, Ariane and Sydney, are magnificent female energy. And my mother was a magnificent female energy for whom I had a feeling of love. And you, Ariane and Sydney, are two magnificent female energy for whom I have the same feeling of love. So now what we have here is the power of association at work. That's what the advertisers use to sell us Pepsi, Cola and Coke. They just associate the use and vitality to the product through song, through movies, through scene of Roman theater. Check the Pepsi ad with Britney Spears and the song "We Will Rock You," and that's exactly what they are doing. It's a magnificent ad, and that goes into our mental box. And once it's in there, whatever comes from the outside of my box, like a feeling of Simone disagreeing with me or Ariane disagreeing with me, that will be compared within my mental box through the information already existing there. And the information already existing there, it's the information that I told you about of my big mother, who has tantrums and whom I love dearly, and on whom my life, my existence is dependent at that point in time. So all this is in my mental box. So every time you speak, you magnificent energies, bang, it goes straight there. and I have trouble controlling the flow of what's coming back. I have a tantrum in my own, meaning that I'm saying I am retracting from you. I said no, I don't talk, and I did it last night again. When we were walking, I said, voilà, je m'en fous. Eh ben, je m'en fous, ça veut simplement dire que je suis, I am triggered in that zone of pain, and I have trouble controlling it. Now, I hope that by expressing it to you, now I am able to become finally aware of that and get rid of that baby. And what I was saying in the previous recording in French, I gave an example, and the example was when Simone and I, in 2004 or 5, took the dogs out. I had decided not to take the dogs on the leash anymore because they were pulling the leash all the time. We had not seen Caesar at that time. And on that particular day, Simone asked me to go and walk the dog with her, and I said, okay, but I don't take them on the leash. She said, no, I will. And she took them on the leash. She walked for 25 meters and then gave me the leash. And when she gives me an order, the female energy of a magnificent woman I love, that's associated to say, yes, sir. And I followed the order, and I took the dogs. I didn't think about it even twice. And the result is that after 25 meters I wanted to kill the dogs, basically, and Simone could not understand why I had this tantrum, and we had an argument, and she wanted to go back home, and I said no, I go and walk, I keep on walking, and I introspect what I feel. I want to know what I feel and why. And what came up at that time, in the haze of all these clouds surrounding my head, what I picked was the fact that when I was 3 years old, I was confronted to my big, nasty mother that was surrounding me, and I had a picture of a dream that comes to my mind where I dream of a Russian woman, and I am in between her legs, and she's controlling me, the little boy. That's it. Now, when I caught that idea, I said to myself, I'm not going to tell Simone because she's going to give me disapprobation, and then I'm going to be hurt even more. I waited a few days so that we went, because we had an appointment with Dr. David Jensen, and in the Dr. David Jensen surgery, shall I say, for the lack of a better word, I'm talking about the word surgery, even though he's not a surgeon, but it's a doctor's place. It's a mental picture. And at the Dr. David Jensen, I told the story of the dogs and me associating this with being 3 years old and having my big mother in front of me. And that scared me. And Dr. David Jensen turned to Simone at that point and said, well, we just had a major step forward here. So he understood what I was talking about. And when I tell you about I was 3 years old and I was afraid I had my big mother with me, well, I have a recording where I am 3 years old and I am crying in the car, and it's called Impuissant pour arrêter les larmes de mon grand-père, and I had this flow of effervescence coming out of my volcano, something like in 2007. Check the date on the document, I don't even recall, but 2007 I think it was, and I have no power to stop that flow of tears coming out. And that flow of tears, that recording expressed the fact that I'm expressing the energy of pain I feel at seeing my grandfather crying. We're in November of 59, and my grandfather had to take his son Leon to the war in Algeria, and he cried and he cried and he cried. Why is that? It's because he was triggered in his head with his own experience of the war, where he spent 5 years prisoner, and he was in great fear for his son. And me, I was 3 years old, I was around, and I soaked that pain, and that stayed in me for all this time until it came out in 2007, and I'm freed from it finally. But I have no conscious memory of that event, but it still came out in that recording through this chirping of my soul in a logical language that my mental box can make. My conscious, as we call it in French, we call of two sides to the soul, the consciousness and unconsciousness. It can come in a language that my consciousness can work on. So it looks like I have expressed all I wanted to express here, because the flow of information has stopped, and I'm going to go back to my writing. But you can listen to both recordings. They are in two different chirpings. It's not the same. It's the same chronological order for the main body of what I wanted to say. Two things: communication is chirping, and we can chirp together, or we can let one chirp and then the other one does his chirping. And two, the fact that when you chirp something that's negative to me or perceived that way by my soul flip, because my soul associates directly the power of the feminine energy of magnificent female, as I said in How to Create Shit in a Box That Does Not Stick. I talk about two magnificent female exposed to the cops, and they get mad, the cops, they beat me. That's my perception, and that's the perception of the little boy within me. And when this magnificent female energy is associated to love in my soul, then it brings me directly to the feelings I had with my beautiful mother, who was a beautiful lady at 18, 19, 20. She's still a beautiful lady today, and I loved her, but at that time she had huge tantrums, and me, the little boy inside, 0 to 6 years old, especially in the first 1 or 2 years of my life, I was alone with her, and I got the most beating out of it. And now Regine comes to mind, because she was in the same boat with her own mother, who was a drinker, and we can see where Regine is at today. She is absolutely unable to control the flooding that's happening in her soul. Every time you bring something on the subject that her soul associates with some past energy that's buried there, she is just flooded, and she's going to kill you. There is no doubt there. She's going to physically kill you to stop you from bringing whatever you are bringing on the table. So thank you for the opportunity to express. I'm going to go back to my writings. I have not used my MP3 for a while, so I'm a bit rusted there, but I have a better control also of the flow of ideas than I used to have before. Before I just vomited in my MP3, so it makes all the recordings worthwhile, but at the same time I was not in control of my flow of information. I did not understand it, so I was just vomiting basically. And this morning I did the same. I vomit, but I create the vomiting, so that's an induced vomiting, shall we say, to give me a chance to fully express what I wanted to express last night, and to express it to me before anybody else. So I give it to you, and that's the song Je te donne de Jean-Jacques Goldman qui me vient à l'esprit. Je te donne mes mots, que ta voix les emporte à ton propre tempo. Et quand je vais, when I'm going to put that recording on the, you see I speak French here, I associate immediately Jean-Jacques Goldman to French, so without even thinking about it, I speak French when I talk about Jean-Jacques Goldman. That's what we talk about, the power of association, which advertisers all around the world use extensively to make money on the monkey. And the monkey is not even realizing what's happening to him. And that's what organized religion did for aeons too, without us realizing it, and without the organized religion people realizing what they were doing. Like the advertisers are doing it, but they are not fully realizing the extent of what they do. Well, I guess they might, but that's another subject. So here it is, good people. I'll stop here. I may have lost my track here at the end, because I want to talk about too many things at the same time. I'm flooded again, but it's okay. I love you. And what I wanted to say is I'm going to burn, if you wish, that recording with the song of Jean-Jacques Goldman in the background, Je te donne. Okay, I love you. Bye for now. Takouk!